Hello, everybody. We're back. And as it would appear, we might be able to get this to work. Let's have a looky-loo. I think we can. We've got visuals now! So we're about to have our first guest call in, who's our expert, Anna. Yeah. So that's fantastic. We finally got visuals working. We hope that within the next couple of days, we will be able to get some like Google Hangouts going, and instead of having people just call in on our Google Voice line, we'll be able to actually have them do Hangouts, which would be really exciting. So, but until then, we've got basically the old call-in show format where we're doing this. And today we're just going to talk about all the new stuff that's happened. There's a lot of new stuff that's been going on from over the weekend and even just today with the, stay-at-home order in Denver, which is probably going to happen pretty much everywhere else in the state. And then probably resharing a grouping of a document that has a bunch of resources in it so that we can keep that going. But yeah. So we're here too, and as soon as we're done with our expert, we'll just take calls from people. Lines will be open. Lines are pretty much open right now, so if you did want to call and leave us a message, feel free, because we'll call you back. But have a look. Let's have a look here. I think this is Anna.
Call from
Anna Bakery.
Hey, Anna, what's up?
Hey, not much. How are you?
Pretty good. Just getting the hang of this new production software, this like switching software, where now I have a camera in front of me, which is odd, but cool. Getting the hang of it. How have you been?
Pretty good. Are we live?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've been well, just, busy, trying to, keep up with work and everything, but also trying to keep up with the news, which is a nearly impossible feat, as everyone knows.
Yeah, I know.
Just got done watching the White House briefing a little bit ago, and didn't see Anthony Fauci up there, which was sad. He's the director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Disease, so he's kind of our beacon of light.
Yeah, our main guy.
Standing up on stage. So.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I mean, I wonder if it had to do with, was it Science Mag that published that thing, interview with him, where he was kind of like,
yeah.
Sometimes I wish I could run up and push him off stage?
Yeah, he said something to the effect of, I can't really, run and push him off the podium and make him stop mid-sentence. And that was in reference to the efficacy that's been demonstrated, or I don't want to say lack thereof, but Trump was very optimistic about the use of these chloroquine and chloroquine derivative drugs, yep, which are anti-malarials. And so he's, referencing a couple anecdotal reports of, their use in SARS-CoV-2 patients. And yeah, Anthony Fauci, afterwards said, well, we don't actually have, large, robust data sets with large sample sizes where we can, confidently say, yes, this drug does indeed, decrease symptoms or severity of disease. So,
right.
There are things like that where it's, just outside the wheelhouse of someone who's not a clinician or somebody who doesn't study those diseases to be making confident assertions about these drugs. So, but yeah, he did say, that there was one point where Trump said something to the effect of the deep state department and
that came out of that.
The don't touch your face rule, and yeah, the Fauci face palm came out of that. So I'm sure that wasn't very well received by the administration. But what do you do? It is what it is. So
yeah,
anyway,
kudos to him for standing up to it. I it just actually probably adds to his respect in my book.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And he's working. He's 79 years old. He's working 19-hour days. So there's a reasonable chance he just wasn't at the briefing today because he had to tend to other business. And I haven't heard any bad news regarding, him no longer being, in that position or something. I mean, God forbid he got fired right now. So I think he probably just wasn't available for the briefing today, but I was sad not to see him.
Yeah, he's, like you said, beacon of light. So what else is new? I mean, we've seen Denver kind of close down and do their sort of stay in place, or what's the official term for that? It's stay at home or whatever, shelter in place.
Yeah, they're shelter in place, yeah, which some people don't like to use that phrase because I think that's the same phrase that's often used for active shooters. And so I think some places are trying to use, stay at home instead of shelter in place. But yeah, so we kind of talked about, or maybe we didn't talk about this yet. So yesterday,
nope, we haven't.
Because we didn't chat yesterday, but Jared Polis, came on and talked to folks about really, maximizing our social distancing or our physical distancing and, going to the grocery store less often and decreasing the, proportion of the workforce that was actually in the workplace. But he didn't give any statewide mandate related to like a shelter in place or a stay at home. And I think some folks were kind of surprised about that since we're seeing that in places like is it Illinois and I know California and
San Francisco, yeah,
New York
and California
City
has already started doing that.
Yeah, so regionally we're seeing that, and I want to say Illinois or one of the other Midwest states, I should know because I'm from Iowa, but they did a statewide stay-at-home order. But anyway, yeah, so then today the mayor of Denver came out and said, okay, starting Tuesday at 5 p.m., we're going to also have a stay-at-home mandate. So personally, I think that's great. I mean,
yeah,
I know it, contributes to, slowing down the economy, and financially it's a whole different can of worms. But from the, from a public health standpoint and from the standpoint of trying to minimize the spread of this virus, which right now evidence suggests is highly, highly infectious, pretty low infectious dose probably, or at least it's, highly transmissible. I think it's great if we can, everybody should stay at home. So.
Well, if we don't do it now, we'll have the longer term, effects be more severe. You know what I mean? If we do it now, we can get it over with, which is great. It's still going to be shitty, but if we can do it now, that's better than any economic peril right now is better to just swallow it than to spread it out over 6 months, because businesses wouldn't be able to survive over 6 months rather than we're working on programs, not we, but the government is working on programs to try, from what I've read, to try and make it at least possible for those businesses to survive for 2 months, or 3 months maybe. But if we have to spread it out over 6 to 8 to 10 months, that's total death,
Yeah.
So.
Well, and we talked about that concern if we try to return to normalcy too soon, then you end up seeing that second spike. I think we talked about this at one point, maybe a few days ago, but when you look at in the 1918 Spanish influenza, when those infections were hitting large cities around the United States, comparing St. Louis, when they first detected cases of influenza, they mandated a very strict shelter in place. Nobody was allowed to, they closed schools, they were sending people home from work.
Yeah.
They were very aggressive, and the epidemic curve, that we talk about, that flattened out, and they took care of it. And then basically at that same time in Philadelphia, they had a huge parade, and thousands of people were gathered in the streets for this parade. And I mean, the peak, that epidemic curve, it was devastating. And so you just look at how these non-pharmaceutical interventions or these kind of social measures that we can take really do impact the trajectory that the outbreak, is going to run. So, looking at, what happened in China and South Korea, those curves, kind of looking at cities or regions in which the outbreak has, run its course, and we're kind of already on the other side of that epidemic curve. Those were 8 to 10 week curves, but China had millions of people on lockdown. And, initially we said, hey, we're never going to be able to do that. Like, other places in the world can't do that. Only China could do something like that. But yet we're seeing, Italy has lockdowns, kind of throughout the country and stuff right now. So we're seeing more of that. And it's like, is that too little, too late? I don't know. We're going to have to, it takes time for the numbers to kind of catch up with what the interventions are and to actually inform us how well they're working. But I think, and we always say this, it's like we want to look like we overreacted, because if we look like we overreacted, that means it worked.
Right, exactly. Is there, we're still climbing pretty steeply as of today's numbers, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I just checked Colorado's numbers. Those are updated every afternoon. And I can throw that link in the comments for you guys, but let's see. So Colorado case summary today: 720 cases, 72 hospitalized, 31 counties had positive cases. Over 6,200 people have been tested, which is quite good when you compare that to other states.
Right.
And we've had 7 deaths with 5 outbreaks at residential and non-hospital healthcare facilities.
Whoa.
So 720 cases. And actually what's really cool is this live update interactive map that I always share, that I'm going to throw in the comments again here, the one that Johns Hopkins runs, which they've just been crushing it since day one. It's a really nice map. They've now got that uploaded at a higher resolution, so you can actually zoom in on Colorado, you can zoom in on different states, and they're now reporting numbers by county. So you can look at, Larimer compared to Weld compared to, the city of Denver and Colorado Springs. Whereas before it was just kind of,
you get a blob for Colorado and a blob for wherever else. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Larimer County is doing a great job here in Fort Collins updating their numbers and stuff. So I'll put my link or my Google Doc I made that's got all of these links to like the different local public health departments and stuff in there. And that's the one that also has like some local resources and stuff. But it's kind of nice to just have all that information in one place. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And from what you've seen on the ground, I mean, because you live in Loveland as well, right?
Yeah, I live in Loveland, but I work up at CSU in Fort Collins.
Is Loveland doing anything these days? I mean, it's a small enough town. I feel like maybe, do they all have drive-up tests and stuff like that going on up there, right?
I don't actually, if you go to, let's check out what we've got for testing. How many testing centers do we even have going in the state of Colorado right now? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a question.
Loveland doesn't have any, no shelter-in-place mandates here or anything. But for the past week, the library's been shut down. They're moving the entire city to, working remotely and stuff. So,
right.
it's pretty standard for what other cities are doing. Kind of closing down municipal areas where there's a lot of folks gathering, like libraries, and then offering as many services virtually as they're able to. But I don't know. I think it's going to be, now that Denver has, is enforcing this mandate, I think it'll be interesting to see what other Colorado communities do, if they follow suit, or
I would expect them to. You would think that they would do it, but one of the main reasons why why Michael Hancock said that was what he was doing was because he cited density as an excuse for some reason, which was kind of like, okay. But we'll see if the other, Fort Collins or Boulder or any of those other places sort of follow suit. I would imagine they would sooner rather than later. Germany has already shut down travel in between states. I'm kind of surprised we haven't done that yet, but
Germany did?
Yeah, they shut down all travel. So even if you wanted to vacation on the seaside or something like that, in northern Germany, and we're coming up through you couldn't travel between states. All tourism is closed. Like, it's a shelter in place kind of thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I had a phone call this morning with one of my good friends over in France, and things are really bad over there too. It's not as bad as Italy, but they're short on face masks, ventilators. there's a lot of the cities and the smaller communities are locking down, but it's bad everywhere. And it's interesting because we're just now starting to see it in some of these, sub-Saharan African countries. But
Yeah.
the cities that are really suffering right now are, the Western, United States and some of these European countries. And so,
yeah, New York also of the places in the U.S. that are suffering pretty badly.
yeah.
I don't know. There's probably just no good news from back east at all, I imagine, at this point.
No, I don't think there's really any good news from. Let me see if I have any notes of good news.
So a little bit of positivity just to cap it off.
Not really. No. No. In terms of treatments, we have this really nice antiviral that they're trying to get pushed through called remdesivir, and that's going to be expensive, and it's a new drug. So the main difference between trying to get an antiviral like remdesivir that's brand new, get that used on COVID-19 patients compared to a drug that we already have in circulation that we're just essentially repurposing and has already been approved for another illness.
Sure, yeah.
So like hydroxychloroquine, our anti-malarial drug, that's kind of the big difference is whether or not those are, approved by the FDA for use in general population. So the fact that we've already got like hydroxychloroquine on board and it's determined to be a necessary drug by the WHO because of its use against malaria. So we've already got that drug disseminated, and so people, if doctors if they feel that they need to use it, they're able to under this kind of compassionate use umbrella administer it to patients with COVID-19. However, I have read a couple reports today about people that are trying to self-dose with chloroquine, and they're poisoning themselves. And
yikes.
so, yeah. So it's one of these things where, and I'm trying not to get too political on the show, but Donald Trump came out and said, this is great, it's a wonderful drug, it's safe, it's not going to hurt you, it's not going to kill you. And this couple in Arizona just poisoned themselves with it, and someone in Nigeria poisoned themselves with it. So, it's one of these things where it's like, hey, there's, there are inherently risks involved in everything. And I think it's when you're on national live television and people look to you as a leader, you have to tread very carefully and choose your words very carefully, especially when you're talking about treatments for a
shit that
virus
could kill you,
that we know very little about,
Yeah, shit that could kill you. Jesus Christ. Well, that's fun. Jesus.
Yeah, sorry. So that wasn't good news. I started to try to spin it as good news, and then I was like, also people are poisoning themselves.
Well, there's only so much
Sorry,
that we can
Anthony.
do. It's tough, man. It's
I know.
tough. It's tough these days. I don't know. What have you been doing to lift your spirits as usual? I guess is a good question. What was the last movie you watched? Tell me more. I don't know. We're at that point.
Well, I'm watching Chernobyl right now, and so that's not terribly uplifting either.
Nice.
I feel like I have been Skyping with people a lot and getting in touch with old friends, and now that everyone's kind of locked at home, there's more time to try to get back in touch. And so if there was a silver lining, I think the silver lining would be that I'm reaching out to people and trying to check in with people, and we're humans and we need each other. So it's hard to be isolated, but there are proxies like Skype. Imagine if we were isolating like this and we didn't have the internet.
Yeah, it's what I've told some people
that would
too
be
before.
Wild.
That would be awful. It's both like the best thing and the worst thing though, because you spend a lot of time on things like Facebook, and it's kind of toxic anyway. I had to talk to a friend of mine last night about this, actually, who called and was getting really stressed out because of the whole Donald Trump calling it a Chinese virus sort of thing.
Oh my God, don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, I know. But still, I had to basically be like, yeah, he's blame shifting and he's a bigot and blah, 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 go down the line. And then we got into a deeper conversation about how, being isolated can be one thing, and it's great that we have the internet, but it's also kind of toxic because you want to do nothing more than just spend all of your time on here. But a lot of the time too, it can be pretty, you just end up getting into fights with people and, just over posting, just shit posting. So it's like both really good and amazing that we have that connectivity, that we can do like live streams, and we can give musicians a chance to perform in front of people even though they're struggling right now, but it's also kind of the worst thing in the world. For people's mental health.
Definitely. And there's I feel like, especially with the kind of how quickly news is coming out and things are changing, there are news articles that are just coming out so rapidly that it's and you have to look at everything with a scrutinous eye. And so there's just a lot more to sift through, and it's exhausting because it's impossible to keep up to date on everything. And you have to question everything and say, okay, who posted this? Who wrote this? Do I trust them? Did they cite their sources? And so it can become a brain drain really quickly. And it's important to, I think, try to carve some time out of your day and step away and unplug. And I should take my own advice, but turn everything off for an hour or two and go for a walk or something.
Yeah, I had to do that yesterday. I had to go for a drive, and that was it was, a walk or a drive, it doesn't matter. But for me, it was it's just like I needed to go, and I drove through downtown Denver, and that was a really interesting experience, seeing all of the businesses boarded up, which is very odd,
That is wild, yeah.
Yeah, because, they're going to be gone for a month, and they don't want people coming and stealing their shit, so they've got to board shit up.
Yeah, it's very dystopian.
Yeah, it felt really weird, traffic. There was still traffic, though, which was what was kind of bothering me a little bit the whole time. I wanted it to almost be more eerie, if that makes any more sense.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be more dystopian,
sense.
Which sounds horrible, but the fact that I was being, very closely followed on the highway by like a little old lady in a Subaru, and then like passing old people who were like driving and going somewhere and out and stuff, I was just like, what? Why? Like, go home, go stay home. What are you doing?
I know. I had to drive into Lab on Saturday, and I was like, okay, Saturday afternoon, are people going to be out? Are they going to be? And I drove by several trailheads, and they were completely full. Every single parking space was full. So, people are out, and they're trying to hike. And, that's fine if you go and you are staying away from people and you're stretching your legs outside. By all means, that's fine. But also, if you have 30 cars in a parking lot, probably at some point you're going to be coming into contact with somebody, who's driving another one of those cars. And so it's hard in Colorado because there are all of these wonderful community spaces, and it's like, okay, you still want people to go outside so they don't go crazy, because I'm really worried to see what's going to happen with like the depression and the suicide rates and everything with all of this quarantine. So it's like, yeah, go outside, take care of your mental health, but at the same time, it's like, do you need to drive to a trailhead and, I don't know, just go for a walk around your block or something,
There you go. Yeah. I'm fortunate enough to have a little bit of a yard, which is nice. And I admit that's like super lucky to be in the situation I'm in now, where I have a little bit of a yard. So it keeps me a little sane. But yeah, it was surreal. Luckily though, I will say one thing, driving through Denver yesterday, anybody who I saw was out like running or going and exercising and doing the thing, they were definitely keeping distance from each other, which was good. And I was like, okay, I can see that, I don't even know where people are going. I just know that people are still kind of going out, which blows my mind, that it's like, how in the world, what have we not communicated about this pandemic as like the media? Like what are we not communicating? What's the point that we're not getting across,
Right. Yeah, I know. I think it's interesting, everyone in that 20 to 29 age group, and that's the age group we've talked about, where when they're looking at retrospective data from like China, sorry, someone's beeping in, some of these other countries that have already been impacted by the outbreak, they're seeing that these individuals were already were exposed and they have antibodies, but they never were symptomatic, right? So this group of 20 to 29-year-old people are probably the ones that are asymptomatic. They're shedding and spreading the virus, and kind of okay, let's blame millennials. It's not what they're trying to do necessarily, but there's almost kind of, this coincidentally happens to be the same age group that maybe feels a little bit invincible, but I think it's really important to remember that there is no zero risk age group. We're seeing people in their 20s and 30s that are hospitalized. It's just at a much lower rate than those individuals that are 60 years and older. So, yeah, you do see a lot of young people out, and that's kind of frightening and concerning because, that's the group that probably should be on a lot of social media and reading the news and staying informed, and yet this is the group that it seems like is kind of sometimes disregarding those rules. So
it's hard to know if the skepticism of news organizations and news sites has just bled into that, I really
exactly.
wonder.
I know the messaging coming out like blaming millennials is also really infuriating because it's like, well,
yeah. Not to get too political and not to end on too positive of a note.
Right. I know.
Jesus.
You just start having one fun fact to end the conversation with.
Don't even worry about it. Honestly, if that's a reality we have to report, we got to report that reality. It's not like we can. I'm sure there are some happy stories that are happening, but I don't want to necessarily have to force it. If shit's kind of shitty right now, then we might as well just kind of go with that. I don't know what else is going. Was there anything else to add? I can't remember if there was anything else that I saw. I was kind of digging through some of my Sage stuff, and I didn't really see anything that we hadn't touched on. The idea of carry out booze I thought was amusing, but that's Colorado.
Yeah, no, not really. Those were the updates, for the Colorado numbers that I had. And, there are a couple other things that I've kind of got my eye on. So they're talking about sending out these self-testing kits where you'll be able to take your own nasal swab and send it in, which is nice because that minimizes exposure for healthcare workers and it, eliminates that step of having to go to a testing center and get tested. But I guess the main question that came up immediately in my mind was, okay, why are we increasing our testing numbers or our, sampling numbers if we can't actually increase the test numbers? Because my understanding here is that the bottleneck in most locations is actually being able to run the tests in the lab. So there are, samples that have already been collected that are sitting in freezers somewhere that still need to be tested. So I don't necessarily, I think it's a wonderful idea being able to take your own sample and send it in, but I don't know how much of a difference that's going to make until we really ramp up production of our testing.
So it's really
that's one thought I have.
Yeah, this is a thing that keeps coming up, and I think a lot of people are fuzzy on it, and I'd love if you could explain it if possible. The idea of why we aren't testing everybody. You know what I mean? Like South Korea has the capacity to do 10,000 a day.
They did. Yeah, South Korea did a good job. Yeah,
they really did, and props to them. But why? What are the sort of technical limitations, and what are the limitations that we're facing right now? To essentially, because we've only done. How many tests is it that we've done? We've not even done 2 days of Korea's capacity, essentially, or something like that.
Yeah, let me see. I'm gonna throw a link in. A link in here, quick. Maybe. Oh, here it is. So there's this COVID tracking project where every day this group is pulling all of the numbers from each public health department. And there's that link. So pulling the numbers from each state public health department and then aggregating them, since right now we really don't have a nice unified way of saying state by state, how many positive and how many negative tests were on each day.
Right.
So it looks like in total, about 280,000 tests have been run in the United States.
Shit.
Or no, I'm sorry. 280,000. So
that's better than what I thought.
Yeah, and if you go to the CDC website, their numbers haven't been updated since I think Friday, and their data are not as high resolution as this COVID tracking project. I mean, one thing that I have something positive to say. Are you ready?
Ooh, give it to me.
Okay. So one thing that I do think is really interesting and cool about when these disasters happen is that it brings people together in a lot of ways, and you see people just, identify a niche or identify a lack of information or a lack of data somewhere, and they fill it. They find a way to fill it, and they are able to recruit other people to help them, and they network, and they reach out on Twitter. And so these scientists that are creating the most up-to-date, highest resolution databases that we have for this outbreak right now, they're just doing this all free of charge on their own time, in addition to writing grants so that they can study the virus, and maybe teaching courses this semester online now, adapting all of their coursework online. And they're still finding time to do things like, contribute to, running this Johns Hopkins real-time update map, or the COVID tracking project, or some of these genomic sites where we're tracking the evolution of the virus in real time throughout the world. I mean, so I think that is one really beautiful thing that I've been seeing is people, and the transparency and the sharing of data that you can kind of watch happen on Twitter between different scientists and different working groups. I mean, you can watch those conversations go down in real time on Twitter, and so that's really cool. There's
that's
a lot
amazing.
of data sharing and transparency that without it, I think we wouldn't have anywhere as good of a grasp on how this thing is evolving, how this thing is penetrating different societies. What the most up-to-date diagnostic tests that everybody's working on, how those are looking. Things like that. So,
yeah, I mean that is a spot where the internet really does shine, because we didn't have that in 1918. To try and share data like that, to try and share research like that. That's
and
insane.
people are sending viral genome sequences, and you can compare and say, oh my God, look at these genomes. We can say that that this particular introduction was probably a seeding event from this outbreak over in this country or whatever. And so you can kind of get this geographic spatial analysis going along with the different mutations that are happening in the virus over time. And so it's really, from a scientific standpoint, it's really wild to watch unfold, but also some of these databases that I'm seeing my friends create in terms of how to redistribute resources for those of us that have lost our jobs, and how to provide mutual aid or provide aid to one another in different ways. Grocery delivery group messages, things like that. I mean, even on a smaller scale, you're seeing people just really stepping up and identifying a need and filling it.
Yeah, and I mean, oh man, that's that is a positive note. Sorry,
so
that was good.
I said something positive, damn it.
Yeah, I know you did. You managed it for sure. Well, cool. I guess, I don't know, maybe tomorrow. I mean, obviously there will be new news tomorrow with this stuff. You've linked pretty much all the data that we need, I can see. So, I guess we'll just stay updated,
Yeah. I'll put both of my link lists in there, and then we'll just plan on chatting tomorrow, I guess.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you for coming on again.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Anthony.
Okay, bye. Hold on. There we go. Lines are open, folks. I might do a thing where I can now play with this switcher. Ooh. Can I just do... Oh, wait. I can do this. Okay, I'm gonna disappear now. Wait for it. Hey. Call us, damn it. Do it. Pick up the phone. Number's on the screen. Can't remember it right now until it comes back. 970-305-5852. Give us a call. Come on. I'll be right here. Literally. Just call us. Seriously. I gotta fill another hour and I don't have enough dead air to do that, so just call us. Pick up the phone. 970-305-5852. I've memorized it now. Come on, give us a call. Do it. Come on.
We watched Easy Rider the other day, and then we got an email about this show. We were like, whoa. Gotta play the Pusher. All right.
Who's out there? Give us a call. 970-305-5852. I'll get it memorized eventually, I hope. It was a lot easier when there wasn't a camera in my face and I didn't have to worry about looking over here to see a number. Give us a call so that I can stop pestering all of you. Do it. Super easy. Just pick up your phone. Come on.
If you live or if you die. Goddamn, goddamn. Push man. Goddamn, goddamn. Push man. Goddamn, goddamn. Push man. Well, the dealer is a man, got the love grass in his hand. But the pusher, no, Lord, he's not a natural man. Dealer for a nickel, sell you lots of sweet, sweet trees. But the pusher ruin your body, leave your mind to scream.
Man, we gotta get some more music. If you've got some music and you want to send it to us, send it to info@saltmag.online. Info@saltmag.online. Just send us stuff. If you've got stuff that's... We'll take SoundCloud links. We'll take anything that's not on Spotify because, generally speaking, UMG or Facebook or somebody gets a little pissy when it's music that's been licensed. So just send us stuff so that we can change up our playlist a little bit. We'd love to have some stuff in the background while we're waiting for people to call, which hopefully will happen soon. So yeah, do it. Maybe I can hit the button.
If I was the president of this land, I swear I waged total war on a pusher man. I cut him if he's dead, shoot him if he runs. very much. Can't you see? I got egg on my face and no one's making a cake. And I know today travel will find me. Give me some danger. Over and over it starts again to think through this. Oh, we could still be friends in my world. Little strike up a match, watch it turn to toast. And if you